Do you like testimonies of overcoming? Saved and Strong shares stories of people who have overcome struggles to find strength. Each episode inspires resilience, hope, and faith, reminding listeners they're not alone.
Hi, this is Carrie Watts on the Saved and Strong podcast. I am here with my friend and author, Glynae Deschene. Glynae, thank you so much for being here. Glynae is a Christian author, speaker, and a media guest. She's a wife, mother, and a grandmother who loves spending time with her family, and she loves to host tea parties and cheer on her grandsons in football, swimming, and soccer, or listening to them in the band. We met through our publisher, Hope Books, and Glynae and I started writing together from 5 to 7 a.m. a little over a year ago. We started on a Zoom room. So she's in Minnesota, I'm in Mississippi, but we're both in the Central Time Zone. So it worked out great that we could show up with I like coffee, she likes tea, but we show up in our robes and we write together. So Glynae, tell our audience about your book that's being released soon.
My book will be coming out, releasing November 4th.
Yeah. What does it feel like to work on a book for so long and then finally hold it in your hands?
It is quite exciting. I feel like it is an accomplishment for me, and just a completion of something that's been in my mind for a long time, over 20 years. So to finally have it accomplished is really fulfilling.
Yes. So Glynae's book, Journey to the Sunset, is a biblical fiction novel. Tell us a little bit about your book.
My book starts after the Tower of Babel happens, and we have the scattering of the people because of the disbursement of the languages. And in my story, it's the journey that God takes these people on. And they start out, and the group that I am telling my story about, they actually return to Noah's Ark, where that point is, and they hear a lot of the stories about the beginning of time. And they are there for a period of time, for a week or so, and then they move on and start their journey. And they will move along, and many things will happen, but they will continue on with God, who in the book, I use the word Elohim. He will guide them and direct them as they go.
Awesome. Well, I love that you took on the Tower of Babel, because not many people have done that, right? And it is just, when Glynae told me that for the first time, I thought, wow. So it always is very curious to me why people write that one book, or hopefully Glynae will have a lot of books, but that first book, like, what was on your mind when you thought you wanted to write this book?
As I said, it was many years ago, and I am an avid reader, and I was reading different stories about the beginning. Most of them were from your evolution point of view. And I thought, well, why can't I write it from the biblical point of view? And that's when the Tower of Babel came to me, and this kind of a journey came to me.
I would love to know your faith journey. You're obviously a mighty woman of God, and you're writing from the Christian creation perspective. So tell us a little bit about your faith journey. When did you become a Christian?
Well, I did become a Christian at a very young age. I was about 5 years old, and I had grown up to that point in a Christian family, but one night we were at friends of our family, we were at one of their services, and there was a ventriloquist speaker and gave the message of the gospel, and I accepted it, and it has continued since then. I'm afraid I should be more of a spiritual giant, but I keep taking each step, one step at a time, to continue my faith journey.
Well, and I think we as women, we don't feel like the work we're doing as a wife and a mother and as a grandmother really holds weight. And actually, I think it's one of the most important jobs that we'll ever have. So tell me, I know you've been through some hard times in your life. Tell me about some of the hardships that you've had.
You're probably referring to my car accident. I actually have had a couple of them. I seem to be a little bit accident prone, but the big car accident what occurred back in 1992, and it is just a miracle that I am here and that I am mobile. I may not do too many marathons, but I was able to write this book. That was an amazing miracle also. It's one of those things where I literally had to learn to take things one step at a time because of the injuries that I had. And so I try and just apply that to my faith journey also.
So, yeah, so Glynae has shared with me, even as a child, that you had some horse accidents as well, correct?
As well, I was actually 15. I was just going to be going, it was the summer that I would be going into ninth grade. And I was riding with my friend, and this horse that I had ridden quite a bit threw me, and I ended up with a brain concussion and skull fracture. And this was quite a long time ago, so there really wasn't too much they could do for me except just have a nurse sit with me and watch. At that point in time, like I say, there wasn't too much they could do, but the nurse said, she says, well, I will comb out her hair. At that time, my hair was quite long, and she says, we don't want to cut it off. So that for a 15-year-old, that was quite a nice thing that she did. And I really don't remember too much of the time of being in the hospital at that time, but then I even had to start ninth grade late, but I recovered from that also. So that was a great thing.
Yes. And so you're quite the overcomer with horse accidents, car accidents. Now, you've also shared with me that as a young married wife is when you had your first car accident, correct?
Well, yes, like I say, I seem to be accident prone. Fortunately, there haven't been any lately, but the first car accident was when I was expecting my son. I was 2 months pregnant, and I ended up having this car accident where somebody was exiting off on one of our freeways and then came back on. And as I moved to avoid him, I entered into the barrier. And so I ended up having a broken jaw at that time. Well, it happened to break in the wrong direction. So just having them put braces on my mouth wasn't quite enough. After the braces were on my mouth, like a week later, they had to go in and do surgery, which, as you know, as a nurse, Carrie, that they couldn't put me under. So it was an interesting time, but then a very good nurse stood with me through that too.
Yeah. Wow. So you've overcome many obstacles to get to this point in your life where you could write a book. In the book, you say there are some challenges that happen along the way as they're journeying. Can you share with us some of those challenges that they come in contact with?
Some of the challenges, of course, are just the terrain that they're going across. There is mountains and there are glaciers, and these are people that have not been used to traveling.
Glynae, tell us about what kind of research you had to do to write your book as a biblical fiction book.
I had to try and put things in the time place that I was working with. I was thinking of it being about 10,000 BC, which is when a lot of the Christian people say that this may have taken place as far as after the flood and the Tower of Babel occurred. And so what was in the world at that point in time? People probably were not wearing boots and things like that. So I had to research on the clothing and the food. What were they eating at that point in time? A lot of the eating in the book will be very basic things that are prepared over the fire. And of course, there was hunting, but what animals were they able to be hunting? What would have been in the area of where the Noah's Ark was as they moved out from that point to on their journey? So I was Googling quite a bit, And I did have some other books that I used. I used Ken Ham's book, and he is the one that works with the Ark Encounter. So I felt that his evidence was quite well researched. So I used his book quite a bit also.
And then I know that you're a tea drinker, and you had told me earlier in the year that you were researching what kind of teas that they drink. Tell us a little bit about the teas.
Well, of course, there wasn't the real tea plant in that area of the world at that point in time. So the teas were more what we would call herbal kinds of tea. But I did use the word tea because I didn't know a better description for a word to come up with. But so in my story, we start out with sage tea, which was interesting. That was one of the original in this time frame teas. And then there was chamomile also. And another one that was interesting was linden tea. And then as the story moves on, mountain tea comes into the story. And these are all herbal teas that go back to a certain kind of a plant that was used as a hot drink. So that was fun. And I have been able to find all of these kinds of tea. Of course, most of us are familiar with the chamomile tea, but I have also found sage tea. And then I actually did order, of course, online from Turkey. I ordered some mountain tea. So that's been fun to try that also.
Great. So, where in the world is your book set? You said Mount Ararat. And then where are they journeying to?
They are journeying towards the sunset. So they are going west along. And in the book, it isn't actually mentioned. It's just mentioned as the sea, but they're following along under the Black Sea. And they're following along and heading towards the area where we would think of as Greece, and in that area where people first started when the disbursement of people took place. So one of the other difficulties they have is having to cross the isthmus that connects the Black Sea with the Mediterranean. So that's another adventure that they have, trying to get across there also. So that was something where I had to do a little bit of research to help them get across this isthmus.
Yes.
So
Now, have you ever traveled to these areas?
I have not. I would love to, but as far as I've gotten is France, but I haven't gotten into that part of Europe yet, but that might still happen someday.
Yes, that would be exciting. So, do you see a sequel to this book, or are you just going to try to get this first book out before you think about writing another one?
Well, let me just say this. The way this one ends, there could be some continuing, but we will see. We'll see what God has in mind. I don't know just what kind of time frame I have here, so he gave me the time frame for this book was able to get published. That's what I prayed when I signed my contract to start writing this book. Okay, God, if you want me to write this book and get it out there, you'll give me enough time. I was a little bit slow, but it took me a year and a half to publish, from January 2024 to now, November 4th, 2025.
One thing that our publisher tells us all the time is only 5% of the people that ever say they're going to write a book actually write a book. So you and our statistics, Glynae, we got it done, girl. I'm so proud of you. That is so exciting. So tell our audience who are considering being authors, who have a book idea, would you recommend that they write the book? Did you have a good experience?
I did have a good experience. They help walk you along the way, and that was what I needed. And you don't have to send in your proposal with them.
Yes. And I agree with Glynae. They not only help us with the writing. I mean, the writing is up to us, but we do have copy editors, we have developmental editors, but we are on a weekly call where they coach us on a lot of the non-writing, the marketing and the posting. And so a lot of the non-writing is just as tedious and requires just as much energy as the writing itself. And so Glenae's done a great job of all of that. I want you to find her website, GlynaeDeschene.com, and I will have all of that in the show notes. And as well, please follow her on social media because she's posting about her book and her writing journey. And there's one thing that as authors we always say is, if you read the book and you enjoy the book, please write a review and give it a rating on Goodreads and on Amazon. That is a sweet gift to an author. And Glynae, back to your faith journey as you are writing and releasing this book, have you felt God's leading you throughout the writing process?
Yes, I wouldn't have been able to continue if I didn't feel that I was writing because God wanted me to write it for some reason. I don't know just what all will happen with this book being published, but I feel that God is directing it and He will open up the opportunities. I will be listening to the nudges that God gives me so that I can see small and mighty things happen.
Yes. Now, you've got an opportunity to speak about your book. How did that go?
It was fun. I was at my church and it was like an interview and a lot of the people were just excited. They've known me for quite a while, but that I was able to do this. And it's as a fiction book, it's a little bit different when they want to know, "Well, what kind of a story are you going to tell?" That was interesting to hear that. And it was a diverse age group, so it was fun to see the different reactions from different people.
On Glenae's website, she does have Glenae helps active retired Christian women who are discouraged with their accomplishments to embrace this season of life with excitement by following God's nudges to see small and wonderful things happen. And you had described that earlier, and I love that mission, if you will.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I have realized. I have been quite involved in missions trips and those kinds of things, and that has been very interesting and enjoyable for me. But at this point in time, I feel that my mission that God has for me right now is to do what He wants me to do with this book. So sometimes our missions fields aren't always the ones that the majority of people think of. We don't have to go to some other land or something to have a mission. We, what we're doing with our life can be what God wants us to be doing for the mission He has in mind for us.
Yes. Glenae came to see me last March. We went to a women's summit together, and she was texting her grandboys as they were reading through the Bible together. And so I just thought that was so sweet. I mean, as you say, your mission field may not be in a different country, and it may be on your phone. Even with your grandsons. I was so impressed with you being a mentor for them, even there.
The amazing thing right now, I am still doing that with my same grandson. They have just started a new study for this new term of school, and he sent it to me, and I just almost started laughing. I had to text back to him. I says, "Well, the what you're going over in your study, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, that's what my book is about." So that was real fun to just see that. So I will see what kind of responses we have from that. And it has been interesting just to go through it again to see what all the different things that can be included in just that small amount of scripture.
Tell me about one thing we talk about in the author life a lot is imposter syndrome, worrying about what other people will think about our book or how they'll criticize it. Has that been an issue with you at all?
I think that I just have this confirmation that for some reason I'm supposed to have written this book and it is now out there. So I am secure in that. But I understand that at times you could have the idea, well, what do I think I'm doing? Why can I think that I can do this. So I do understand that.
Yeah. So if we have a listener who is hesitant of writing their book because they have those fears of who am I to think that I should write this book, what would you say to encourage them to overcome those fears?
Well, if you are a person of faith, I would definitely pray about it and see if you feel that it is something that God really wants you to do. I would start with that. And then there are a lot of sources that can help you to get started and find a group to help you. It's very difficult to write all by yourself. You need a group of people to encourage you along the way. I guess would be my best advice.
Well, thank you. If you look at Glynae's website, it's a beautiful website, but she does have on there a quiz about what character you are, and I think that's really fun. I've taken the quiz, and I took it so long ago that I've forgotten who I am now. But that was really fun, and I actually added, as a result of your quiz, I added a character quiz to my website as well because I thought that
Oh,
was just fun. Yes,
yeah.
I love it. You can sign up for Glennae's newsletter on her website to receive encouragement, reflections, and hope for the week ahead that will come to your inbox every Sunday afternoon. You can email her with questions. She's got her email address there on her website. And again, you can find her on Facebook and Instagram for exclusive insights and inspiration. Glynae, what else would you like to leave our listeners with today as far as being a woman of faith, being a woman who has overcome many obstacles and challenges, as well as becoming an author?
I would just want to say to you that just continue on going. Sometimes it's just a slow journey, one step at a time. If that's all you can do, that's okay. Just continue your faith journey. And as God gives you little nudges, try out the opportunity. Try it and see how it works for you. And continue to just check in with God and see if that's the direction He wants you to keep going. So thank you for listening.
Yes. Well, and I have read the Bible enough to know that when we are obedient, that God brings the blessings. What an awesome thing for your grandchildren to see you following through with the nudges that God has given you and to keep moving forward in this journey. I pray that your book is makes a mighty impact. I know that it was intentionally written to inspire others to keep moving forward on the journey because it does give us a picture of this journey of life. It's not always easy and it can be full of surprises. We just need to keep moving forward in faith that God is going to carry us through and that we have hope through him and his son Jesus. I love that. Thank you, Glynae, for being my friend. Thank you for being an author. Thank you for being a strong woman of faith. And I want to thank our listeners for being here with us throughout the whole podcast. Find Glynae at glynaedeschene.com, and I will put everything in the show notes.
Listeners,